Hey guys, welcome back to whatever this is. And on today's episode, I only heard a little while ago that Toriyama has passed. I just want to talk about the games that influenced me as well as the biggest inspiration for a lot of my hobbies nowadays. Um, so at the time of recording, this is very late. Usually a little later than I normally would record. So if I look tired, sorry. Um, but what this is mainly about is to hopefully get people to understand like how much of an influence this man really had on everything. It's up there with Berserk far as far as storytelling or even influence of a style or things to come of what he did, and especially how goofy his storytelling was. Um, as Toriyama created many things. Obviously, the biggest one is Dragon Ball. He also created Dragon Quest. This one says Dragon Warrior, something about copyright, couldn't get it, called it Dragon Warrior North America. And that was all the influence of his character designs for this series really put it on the map. And it was one of the first RPGs. It inspired Final Fantasy. It inspired a lot. Much, just stylistic to even storytelling. You have to remember this was someone who ended up writing Dragon Ball from start to the end of Z. For the longest time it was just Z, and now we got Super. GT doesn't count. He caused characters to age. He made it more okay to have that happen because back then characters didn't age. This influence is huge to lose. Not only that, the influence of like what Dragon Quest is for RPGs, the art style. There's even Blue Dragon out there that's an Xbox exclusive, and that influence is just felt. Like I know we all made the jokes like, ha ha ha, this character looks like this, but at least at the same time he was really honest about it. I have it over here, but if you look at Dragon Quest 8, I didn't pull it out. His characters all look like Dragon Ball characters, and that's really funny. But the monster designs in that game are incredible because he got distracted. And I love that about it. And just that kind of candid nature you'd kind of get from him periodically when most artists would be like, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, he forgets launch existed at some point. And people are like, what happened to launch? And he's like, who's launch? And then years later, he just admitted, yeah, I just forgot. And just the impact it had, you also have the abridged series that this put down. You had them making fun of it, which made people want to go watch the original, which then would make them go back to Dragon Ball, and just it was this interesting cyclical cycle that ended up being created by Team 4-Star. The games I played impacted a lot of my flavor of games. If you ever played The Legacy of Goku, this is Legacy of Goku 3, this is Legacy of Goku 2. Legacy of Goku 1 sucks. These are great action little RPGs, and because of how Dragon Ball was released to North American viewers such as myself, our view on Dragon Ball is really weird because we started with Z. Now, I'm one of those people that went back and watched Dragon Ball and made me appreciate not only what Dragon Ball represents of adventure and fun, which then just became a fighting manga, which is perfectly fine. I love that about it. But what I love is the callbacks they would do. So one of my favorite jokes is the fact that the most common wish any person ever had for the Dragon Balls, I want to get taller. It's great. Like, what a goofy joke to throw in. As that just shows, like, hey, for those who've been reading for a really long time, here's a couple jokes for you guys, just for those. So when I saw one of the Dragon Ball movies in theaters, when Frieza was like, I want to be 5 centimeters taller, not only did that joke get a laugh out of everyone, you can kind of tell who watched Dragon Ball, because there was like me and my friend. She got me more into Dragon Ball, and like we were crying laughing. A couple people in the front row dying laughing. Some people to the right of us dying laughing. But you could really tell those people really like Dragon Ball, and it like how rich that story really is. Like going back and watching Dragon Ball itself is really impressive, especially coming out in the 80s, and the story it was telling of adventure. It was had a cycle to it. Dragon Ball tournament arc, Dragon Ball tournament arc, until we got into it where it was just a fighting manga when the Saiyan showed up. That was kind of the cutting point. You could say it happened at the Junior fight, but nah, it's the same thing. And Dragon Ball was a story about the kid getting the Dragon Balls, and then he became an adult fighting and saving the planet. And it's years of history that impacted so much. And even the stories that come out of these Dragon Quest games, the art style, it's so good. That is just, it's permeated so much of what anime is, allowing characters to age, develop, like just have a long-running series such as this, especially one as deep as Dragon Ball. And I know I'm already rambling, but this impact is really hard. Like the amount of series now that I mentioned just offhand, I wish it had a Kai. Bleach needs one, and Naruto needs one. But Dragon Ball just didn't. Do I wish it was reanimated? 100%. I'll take these, though. This is how I would show Dragon Ball to somebody nowadays. We watch this, and then we go to this. And it's a good story, and it's broken up in good ways. And I could sit there and talk about... I'm just going to bring up Dragon Ball GT. I think it had great ideas from different writers. Poor execution. I think it kind of forgot who the fundamental core of these characters were, which is okay. And that's the beauty of Dragon Ball, is that there's just so much of what he created. And clearly his designs influence other characters. Like Dragon Quest XI was a game that came out a few years ago and just obliterated everything. Like, it did so well, especially on the Switch, but I also think RPGs just do really well on the Switch. And because I love Toriyama's art, I never would have played the Dragon Quest Builders games. I haven't had a time to bring these up on the channel. But I just kept staring at the art of this one, like, a lot at work at EB Games, and I'm like, I'm just gonna buy it. I like the box art. Saw used copy popped in, bought it. Right off the bat. Why? Because it was Toriyama's art. Toriyama gave us the blue slime, which is equally as recognizable as a symbol for RPGs as a freaking chocobo. And I'm glad that at least I know, and maybe I'm giving some new information to some people out there, that when it comes to Dragon Ball, I do know it's in good hands. It was decided years ago that Taro Tano would take over for him for Dragon Ball. I'm not currently reading anything Dragon Ball. I'm kind of just literally waiting for the movies and the animes. But at least I know it's someone he's worked with and was trying to push the series forward. Because I definitely care about this. The more I've talked, the more I realize I really do, his presence will be missed. Because sometimes he just does dumb things for the sake of it, and I think that's great. Like, the Great Saiyaman, that wouldn't even exist without someone just being like, you need to keep writing. And this man just figuring out how to just do it and add on and only explain when necessary. And one of the last games I guess he worked on would have been Dragon Quest Treasure and Dragon Quest Monsters, which I haven't picked up yet, but I will at some point. And I'm even still playing a game that just had content dropped on it. And it was the end of Dragon Ball Z, so the Kakarot games, with all of its DLC. It even fundamentally got me more into fighters. Because of Dragon Ball. Like, I was like okay with fighters, and then, anime games weren't really that good in the PS2, or they were okay, but this was the first one where I was like, okay, Dragon Ball games can be good, because people liked watching me play this game. Because it was just flashy, and it was really cool at the time. Maybe now it looks a little muted, especially because we have Fighter Z. But at the time in 2003 when this came out, like, there was nothing like it on the market. It was a phenomenal game, and I would still say it's one of the best ones. And Dragon Ball gave me an inn with... Wow. That's right. So getting off of Toriyama's passing into another person. This is someone I did meet multiple times. His name is Chris Ayres. He voiced Frieza. He's a wonderful man. Very kind. Smoked a lot. If you knew him. Smoked like an absolute chimney. He passed a few years ago. But because of Dragon Ball, there was that connection where I went up and said hi to him. His hotel room was in the same as mine. I would see him passing. And I ended up just popping into the bar and ended up chit-chatting with a couple other guys and so on and so forth. And this was I asked Chris Ayres to sign this for me. And he called me a vermin. He was a really nice man, actually. He would just be like, do you want to be a W or a V? And Dragon Ball's connected me to so many people throughout the years. Just as a conversation piece. Just as Dragon Ball is. Life's an adventure. Don't take it too seriously. But do what you can. And I'm not really sure where to go with this anymore, but to say rest in peace, Toriyama. Thank you so much for putting this out in the world. And rest in peace, Chris Ayres. I never got a chance to say goodbye. I know we'd fire messages, not too, like one or two, not many, over Facebook. But you'd always respond to all your fans, like you were great. And Toriyama created a connection that led to another one. And the connections that anyone else has felt through knowing Dragon Ball, the cultural impact, the fan impact it's had, the joy it brought to people across multiple generations. Without Dragon Ball, I don't think anime gets as big as it does. And I think that's the biggest thing to realize of all of this is I love Dragon Ball. I love anime. I love video games because he's just put his hand in it and just made it better. And giving us wonderful, wonderful IPs that he has had a hand in. Even if he's not the full creator of it, I understand that. I'm just saying that art style is just so iconic to him. And that's where I'll leave off for today's episode, because I feel like I'll just keep going in circles at this point. So rest in peace, Toriyama. Thank you so much for the wonderful series that you've worked on throughout the years. The wonderful jokes that me and my friends will still make about Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball GT Super, and what comes out in the future. He made one of the most touchstone products ever to come out of Japan. Dragon Ball's huge. Big impact on all of the media. And as I'm talking, I'm really realizing that, yeah, that was a big meteor impact this man made on this industry. Even if he joked that he hated it, which is fine. And the connections I made with friends, even friends that are also gone. But anyways, guys, that's it for this week's episode. I was going to shoot something else, but this just happened, so take care and have a good one.